I've got questions.
Cool.
Okay.
As long as you guys didn't watch the Oscar nominations this morning, I've got questions.
I didn't even know they were happening.
Nope.
Yeah, I didn't know they were happening until I had the TV on. Okay, good. So I've got fun facts.
Oh boy. All right.
Yeah, I've got a lot more on Encanto than on Tick Tick Boom. Just
I kind of balance them evenly. Let's hit Tick Tick Boom first, then. What do you say?
I guess it's blow through. Yeah, I haven't seen that one. That is not on Disney Plus.
Okay. I mean, that's fine. Yeah. Okay.
What was that on?
That's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. Oh no, I thought it was on like HBO or one of the other ones.
No, it's on Netflix.
Right there on Netflix.
Okay, ready for the count?
Oh, do we have an opening thing?
Yeah, I've got the opening covered, Patrick. I think I outdid myself this week. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool.
Oh, righty. And in 3, 2, 1.
And welcome to another episode of Even More Mashed Up, the pop culture podcast featuring two professors talking about, well, all things pop culture. I'm Patrick.
And I am Alan. And this podcast episode, Patrick, is so arresting that federal law requires us to read you all your Miranda rights.
Oh my God.
How good is that?
That was awful.
Your Miranda rights.
Yeah, no, I get it. Oh,
come on.
And here I thought what I came up with would be awful. Ugh.
What did you have?
Oh, I had one that was going to say, we're doing something that we're not supposed to do today because we're going to talk about Bruno. No.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're equal. I would say if you had sung it, then I would have been more impressed.
Oh, I was going to sing it. I just was,
okay.
We're going to talk about Bruno. No.
Here's the thing. That's the obvious way to go. Nobody saw Miranda rights coming until they were already past you.
Until it ran us over and flattened us. Yes, you are correct.
That's the best kind of opening. Literally left you speechless.
Vehicular manslaughter.
Well, it left me speechless because of the vomit.
Oh, well. I do apologize then.
Yeah, I
kind of liked it.
That was rough.
You hear Miranda rights.
Yeah, no, we clearly understand that you were very amused by your joke. That is 100% clear.
Anyway, we are talking about Lin-Manuel Miranda, for those who didn't quite
or at least two
reference.
things he's involved in.
Well, I mean, what else is there to talk about Miranda right now except for Tick Tick Boom and Encanto?
Yes, which are also both Oscar-nominated films as of this morning.
Oh, here comes some fun facts.
That's really more of a Quizlet.
It's a what?
Ugh,
it's a Quizlet.
I think that's a copyright infringement right there.
It's a small quiz, so it's a Quizlet.
Pretty sure that Quizlet is copyrighted, Patrick.
I'm gonna Google it right now.
If you Google it, I think we're probably gonna get sued.
Hey, that's
okay.
A company.
Then it's not a Quizlet. It's a little quiz.
It's a quizzy.
So, can either of you guess between them how many Oscar nominations did Tick Tick Boom and Encanto get?
I can guess, actually.
I won't be correct, but I can guess.
Would you like to guess?
Oh, do you want me to guess? You just asked me if I could.
Yes, feel free. Yes.
But between the two of them, I'm going to say half a dozen.
I'm going to go with 10.
Well, Alan was closer because it was 5.
Oh, but we were both over. Interesting.
Yes, you were both over. Now, do you want to guess how many each film got?
Ooh.
Keeping in mind that the total should add up to 5,
So
and not any other any other number, Alan.
That may not help Rich in this endeavor.
Yeah. That just
Rich,
means I
you
will
can-
embarrass myself completely.
You
Well,
can go
I mean,
first,
what
Rich.
you've got 4 and 1. You've got 3 and 2. You've got
5 and
So I can't
0.
say that, so
5 and 0.
TikTok
Yeah, you've got 3
TikTok
options.
probably didn't get 12, then I assume.
So they got 5 total
Oh
between
my
them.
goodness. Ugh.
I'm gonna go 3-2. Tick Encanto.
I'm
So
going to
3
go.
for Tick Tick and 2 for Encanto is what you're saying, Rich?
I'll go 2-3.
All the reverse.
Yeah, I
So
don't
you're
know.
saying 2. What are you saying? 2 for Tick Tick Boom and 3 for Encanto, Alan?
If Rich said the other way, that's what I'm saying. Yep.
I
Yes.
did say the other way.
Okay. Alan is correct.
Oh, Rich, thank
I
you.
love Disney.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Yes, it's 3 and 2. 3 for Encanto and 2 for Tick Tick Boom. Now here comes the tough question.
Yeah.
Don't
In
ask
what
us which one.
categories
Oh.
was each film nominated?
All right. Tick Tick Boom would be
I
lead
don't even know the
actor
categories.
and would be
Correct.
soundtrack.
Incorrect.
No, I think Disney. I mean, Disney. I think is always gonna get the soundtrack.
Supporting actress.
No.
It better not be for direction.
No.
Okay.
Screenplay.
No.
Sound editing.
Oh, sound design.
So close.
Editing sound.
No
Just editing?
closer.
Wait, did you
editing?
mean close because it has
Yeah,
to do with the
best
music?
best film editing. That's what it. Yeah, it got it.
Ah,
Tick
that
Tick
wasn't
Boom
close
is
at all.
best actor and best film editing.
That second one surprises me. But everybody knew Garfield was getting the nod, right?
Yeah, he's got some stiff competition though.
Oh, does he?
Well, he's up against Denzel for Macbeth. He's up
Yeah.
against Will Smith for King Richard.
Oof.
He's up against Javier Bardem for the Ricky Ricardo.
Oh boy.
And I can't remember who the last person he's up against is, but he's got a yeah.
Let's be honest. Ricky Ricardo's not going to win.
I don't
But
know.
the-
Oscars love people acting like they're other people.
Yeah.
No,
And
I
it's
know
from, like,
that. It's kind of the
the
definition of
Hollywood loves
acting if you
celebrating
think about
itself. Yeah.
it. Or almost.
That's the kind of thing.
It just seems to me like
But
almost
Hollywood also
every
likes
actor.
celebrating itself.
But doesn't every actor act like somebody else, except for maybe the cast
Well,
of
but, like,
Friends?
I mean, somebody that they're basically doing an impersonation. I mean,
Oh, never mind. It was just a Friends joke.
Hmm.
I just feel like that movie didn't
So-
get a lot of critical reception. It just feels like the others.
It
Like
didn't.
how do you beat Denzel in Shakespeare? It seems like
that seems like he's probably the front runner.
Yeah,
and then I
that'd be
think
my vote.
after him might be Will Smith and King Richard. That's who they were mainly talking
Yeah.
about this morning.
yeah. So now we need to guess.
Still nominated is kind of nice.
The three categories that Encanto is nominated for.
Well, one's clearly the music.
Soundtrack.
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to be more specific than that.
Musical soundtrack.
Nope, still gonna have to be more specific.
Magical musical soundtrack.
Musical soundtrack in an animated film.
It's up for animated film.
And something music.
Or
It-
some things music.
I don't know what that meant.
I
It
don't
means
have
there's
any
more
idea.
than one music award.
Oh.
Musical editing.
No.
Music
oh my God,
writing?
I thought these guys. I thought you're gonna nail these. No,
I don't know.
this is embarrassing.
Yeah, I have
It's
no idea.
best original song and best original score. The score and the songs are
That's the
treated
word
separately.
I'm looking at.
I
Yeah.
pretty much feel
I
like
was gonna say screenplay
soundtrack
again,
covers
and I knew it
that.
wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, because you can buy the soundtrack that are the songs Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote, or you can buy the soundtrack that is the score. They are both soundtracks that you can purchase.
I
Did
would
he
think
not
they
write the
would all
score?
be. They would.
No,
just
he did
be,
not write the score.
Wouldn't they just be mashed up together?
Nope.
That's
No,
weird to me.
no. A lot of ones they separate them out. Particularly if they have like a significant amount of, instrumental music and then sung.
Well, I've never
I guess that makes
bought
sense.
an album like that. I bet you have. But if I were to buy a music album like that, I'd want them mixed together, just like it was in the movie.
Yeah, because they try and play them.
Yeah, but then you're only getting half the money you could otherwise get.
Well, no, I'm getting twice as much music that I would normally get.
Yes,
but the writers
are
by
you. I meant our corporate overlords.
Oh, so it's important do we know who you identify with?
Yes. Final question on the mini quiz.
Quizzy.
Which song from Encanto was nominated for Best Original Song?
Well, it would seem like everybody's singing Bruno.
Yes, but it's not Bruno.
Is it the... oh boy, do I even know the names of the songs?
If you want to describe the song, I might.
Is it Isabella's song?
No.
Okay, is it Luisa's song? Surface Pressure?
No.
All right, then I don't care then.
It's it's Alma's song, Dos Oruguitas.
Oh.
The Spanish language song that's sung over like the flashback of her life at the end. Or near the end.
Alma.
Yep. So that's the end of the So yeah, no song nominations for Tick Tick Boom. No Best Film nomination for Tick Tick Boom, which seems to be surprising some people.
It's a little surprising, I would say.
Yeah. Do you want to guess how many nominations Spider-Man No Way Home got?
I'm going to say 2.
That would be too many.
1?
Yeah, it got nominated for visual effects, and that's it. Dune got nominated for a bunch.
You're kidding.
I
guess I should have seen
Dune
it.
actually got nominated. Dune got nominated for Best Picture.
I'm back.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it's one of the 10 nominees. Yeah, and then it was nominated in a lot of the technical categories.
Wow. Huh.
So of course it doesn't help that the guy they had announcing the nominations when got to Denis Villeneuve, the director of Dune, basically said "Dididuve" as his name this morning the first time.
Well, that's excellent.
And that was, he tried it like 2 times, and he's like, Dididuve? I'm like, no, it's Denis Villeneuve, or Villeneuve. He butchered it. We seem to be losing Rich.
He's gone.
Yeah, he says the internet died, I'll be back in a sec, and he came back and then was gone again.
Oh, yeah, so I see. Shall we continue the show without him, I guess?
I guess. I mean, I've got more fun facts, but they're all about Encanto, so if you want to do Tick Tick Boom.
It feels like we can dismiss Tick Tick Boom as quickly as the Oscars did.
Well, I mean, it got 2 nominations.
I guess that's not bad.
Which isn't nothing. So I mean, I would really like Andrew Garfield to win, but I don't. He's in a tough category.
No, it was a terrific performance. I agree with you. I'd like to see him win. It seems like a fairly long shot.
It would be a nice bow on kind of the renaissance of Andrew Garfield that we're enjoying right now.
Right. No, that is true. And if it's a true renaissance, he'll have other opportunities, right?
Yeah, one would hope. I mean, he's a very good actor, as Tick Tick Boom and Spider-Man sort of reminded me.
Yes.
Hey, Rich is back.
I like how Rich just chimes in with the yes, having been gone for that entire conversation.
Well, no, I was listening. I was waiting until you were done before I popped back in.
Do you think he usually just is on autopilot like that, and just he's kind of like Ed McMahon on the couch?
Hey-o.
That sounds good.
Like periodically, you are correct, sir.
I mean, that's pretty much how I am on this show.
Well, me too.
Yep.
We all just autopilot off of each other.
Yep. So, Tick Tick Boom thoughts. Alan, would you like to...
Yeah. What I found most fascinating about this movie, and what I loved about this movie, is it felt to me like you could watch Tick Tick Boom and see an artist drafting a show over iterations of shows. And I don't know that I ever thought of like a musical composer in that kind of way. But to me, it felt as if you could hear Jonathan Larson drafting Rent as he was working his way through his first couple of shows, which are which are, you know, seen and heard in different ways on screen.
Yeah, I agree. That was one of the things that stood out to me in the film as well, and one of the things I really liked was, you know, the way that it's, you know, the film adaptation of his second musical, which is all about his first musical, but obviously you can see it leading into Rent, which was his third and final musical. You can kind of see the way in which, you know, there's clearly elements, particularly of the second musical, you know, Tick, Tick, Boom itself,
right,
feeding into Rent. Particularly the moment where, I can't remember if it was the agent or someone else kind of said, you know, write what you know. And there were a couple scenes early on where he was kind of talking about his life. It was the party where they were talking about being bohemians. I'm like, well, that's a song from Rent. There's a song about the bohemian lifestyle. I don't remember the exact title, and I was a little bit concerned that
Vie Bohème.
Like, is this entire film just going to be like references to Rent? And I was very glad that it wasn't, and that it did have kind of its own story. But I agree, it was very sort of meta in that way.
Yeah, I thought you would like the meta-ness of it, and to me, like, it's so clearly showing the trajectory to Rent, and I know it's way more easy to like put that together in retrospect. Like, it's easier to know that Rent is the final work and then kind of see everything leading to it. It's always easier to construct these things working backward, but like it was thematic and it was content, but it was also, you could see him working with musical motifs that he was going to polish and tweak and change as he kind of moved to Rent. And I'm fascinated. Nothing fascinates me more than thinking about or trying to understand how people create. And so I thought the movie was just like this fascinating kind of case study of creation that I thoroughly enjoyed in that way.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I thought it might get nominated for Best Picture, because the Oscars also love movies about making movies, or movies about artists, or movies about creating. So I was a little bit surprised that it didn't at least get nominated, because it seems that's a kind of film that Oscars like.
It's also a movie in which Andrew Garfield is, what you said earlier, acting like somebody else.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that is. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right.
Perhaps Jonathan Larson isn't as well known, you know, as.
Well, but also, you know, unlike, I don't think Andrew Garfield didn't do anything to actually try to look like Jonathan Larson, whereas Javier Bardem,
got it.
You know, very much. If you think about like that, or you think about Eddie Redmayne when he won for playing Stephen Hawking.
Yeah. But you know, there's something else going on there. Right? It's that it's playing somebody else, but Hollywood and Oscar really love physical transformation.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Exactly.
Like to win an Oscar, you need to take a really good-looking, pretty person and turn them into something that's not.
Yes. Generally speaking, yes. Which might be the one reason why Bardem won't win, because he's not really the you know, the Stephen Hawking transformation or anything like that.
Right. So I have a second observation about the film, unless you've got something you want to jump to.
Well, no, the only other thing, speaking of transformation, is the whole time I was watching the film, and the actor playing Larson's girlfriend, Susan, in it, I was like, for the life of me, I'm like, I know her from somewhere, and I couldn't figure out what it was, so I finally just had to look her up. She was Storm in Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix.
You know who caught that was Vicky.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It would have slipped right past me, but Vicky was like, I know her, and she figured it out.
Yeah, no, I was like, I know her too, and I'm like, I looked her up, and I was like, oh, that's who it is.
Yep.
And then the other thing too is that even though Vanessa Hudgens was in it pretty much from the get-go playing Caressa, I didn't realize she was in it until they got to the first rehearsal of the first musical when her character sort of comes up and says something to him about the song he hasn't finished. I'm like, oh, that's Vanessa Hudgens. I'm like, that's weird that they're just having her show up now in this film. And then as I was watching, like, oh, no, wait a minute. She's been Caressa the whole time. It was like, I did not recognize her at all.
Yeah. Yeah, which gets me to
because she had like the big 80s hair.
Which gets me to a fair or foul I'd like to read for you.
Oh.
It comes from The Decider.
Okay.
And John
I don't know
Serba.
what The Decider is, but
I don't.
very official.
Well, I mean, how could you disagree? So here's what John Serba wrote. Quote, Garfield's on the cusp of manic energy is undeniable, but for my money, the MVP here is Ship, who's an easy, naturalistic screen presence and acts as the movie's intensely necessary grounding presence.
I'd say that's fair. She was really good in the role.
I thought she was, absolutely terrific, for sure.
I mean, overall, I thought it was a really good cast in general. But no, Ship was excellent.
But the casting, there was one bit of casting that I really had trouble working around.
Was that Bradley Whitford as Stephen Sondheim?
Yeah. The guy that played Dean Armitage is playing Stephen Sondheim. And I just, it just kept mashing up Get Out. He's
Dean Armitage.
He's the
gotcha.
The
dad from
white
Get Out.
lead, the dad in Get Out, and that he is Sondheim. I mean, number one, Bradley Whitford. That's some pretty impressive range right there, I suppose, in some ways. But it was just weird, and I started thinking, there's a mashup in there somewhere for us to put together. Like Get Out the musical.
Oh, I don't think that's something you and I should do.
No.
Who should do it then?
No.
Specifically because we shouldn't do it. We should do it.
Yeah. No. I don't. I think it did. I will say Bradley Whitford as Stephen Sondheim because Bradley Whitford is so recognizable as Bradley Whitford.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, he's playing Sondheim. I'm like, okay. It's just I do love Bradley Whitford, but he does, he's very recognizable.
Right. Yeah.
And so that for different reasons than you, it kind of took me out of it. I was like, oh, it's Bradley Whitford doing what Bradley Whitford does, only this time he's Stephen Sondheim. Okay.
Right. No, for me, I just kept seeing Get Out. I was waiting for him to do terrible things. But anyway.
Or to talk about how he would have voted for Obama a third time.
Yes. Well, which is kind of terrible in the context of that movie. But yeah. So there was one thing about this movie that really put me off. And it was something that Bobby noted too as we were watching it. The show is kind of about the ways in which it's a show really about the need to support new art, right? That we don't want the same stuff getting churned out all the time, that we should be supporting new art that stars a big name in Andrew Garfield and is so chock full of Broadway star cameos that after a while it drove me a little bit bonkers, including Lin-Manuel Miranda himself. And there's an element to that just made it a little too smug for me. Could we have
that's interesting,
one film where he doesn't have a cameo? One film where we're not, oh, there's Lynn. I don't know. To me, the cameos lessen the experience as kind of all these Easter eggy things do for me.
Yeah,
Plus,
see, I only noticed the only time I noticed the cameos was in the diner scene. I didn't notice them anywhere else in the film.
That's what I'm thinking about, is the diner scene, which is just again, so stuffed full of Hollywood's, or Broadway stars. I don't know. Yeah. It just, to me, it's the film wanting to have its cake and eat it too. It wants to be about art, and yet it can't help but do kind of an MCU, Disney, Marvel kind of thing anyway.
Well, but at the same time, I think it was meant not so much to reference film stars. It was Broadway stars.
Wait, but but it's the same thing to me.
That were cameos.
It's the same thing to me, you know. Well, no,
yeah,
right?
But
to me, it's the same. It's the same thing, you know. Like, we don't need it. We don't need the dressing. We don't need the Easter eggs. We don't need the cameos. I don't know. Let's make some art with new artists. That would be awesome.
See, I thought more as, particularly with established actors like Bebe Neuwirth and whatnot. I saw it more as kind of honoring the past of Broadway.
Yeah, but it's that honoring that limits our art so often. It felt to me like,
I mean,
in a film
that's all about the creation of art.
I think
it's a nice thing. I think it's a nice thing to recognize kind of a history of the artist. I think part of it too is as I was watching the scene, I was like, oh, there's Philippa Sue and the other actress from Hamilton, and I was like, oh, there's Lin-Manuel Miranda. I was like, how did they get all of them? Because it's possible that I did not realize until the end of the film that it was directed by Lin-Manuel Miranda, and I was like, oh, that explains how he got.
Oh, geez,
them.
Yeah, no, this was quite a passion project for Miranda, right? Like, he actually.
Yeah, see, I knew nothing about the film except that Andrew Garfield was in it.
Yeah, he actually revived Tick, Tick, Boom off Broadway for a while, you know. So this is, and Miranda in interviews has talked about the way in which seeing Rent, I think he was like 17 when he went to see Rent, kind of opened up the way that he, understood storytelling on a stage and whatnot.
See, I'm starting to see the problem. See, it's almost as if you're way too immersed in the minutia of Lin-Manuel Miranda to watch a Lin-Manuel Miranda film objectively.
That's interesting because I did all of this research after I watched the film and it put me off. But sure, besides that, your theory holds a lot of water.
Yes, it does feel like that. Because I am not, awash in Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. You've not really done any research for this, which is a fine admission to make on the podcast.
Yeah, I just went to it, I don't want to get bogged down in all this extraneous stuff. I just want to see the art as art.
Exactly. What you want to do is see the art as like, guess how many Oscars this one got or that one got. Yeah, that definitely tracks.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Definitely tracks.
Yeah.
Maybe we should move to Encanto because I feel like we're going to run out of time, and I think you've got a lot prepared for Encanto.
I have a lot for Encanto. In fact, you know what I have for Encanto?
If you have a quiz,
I have fun facts. No. Well, it's not so much a quiz. It's more, of course, a fun facts. So as of today, We Don't Talk About Bruno. Is the first song from a Disney animated film to spend more than 1 week at number 1 on the Billboard chart.
That's surprising.
I mean, even the...
What other song from a Disney animated film topped the Billboard chart?
It would have to be Let It Go, right?
Let It Go peaked at number 5.
Really?
Wow.
It's not Let It Go.
How much that was being played?
I know. That's what everyone assumes it's Let It Go. It's not Let It Go.
Is it something from Pocahontas?
No, it's not from Pocahontas.
Is it an old one?
Era of Disney films?
It is from that. It is from that era. Yes.
Okay. Is it something from The Little Mermaid?
No.
It's not.
So something from Disney.
It's not Beauty.
Top the charts.
It's not Beauty and the Beast, is it? Like, not from that film?
No, it's not Beauty and the Beast.
Okay. Be Your Guest. That was the thing I was thinking about. Be Your Guest, but no, that's not it.
No.
Is it the big Moana song?
No.
No, because it's from the past era. That's the thing, is I didn't know there'd be... Can you tell us what year?
I cannot tell you what year, because that would have required me looking that up.
Well, I gotta say, I'm stumped.
Yeah.
It is A Whole New World from Aladdin.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, it spent 1 week. It spent 1 week at number 1.
It's not a very good movie, and the song is pretty... Yeah. Interesting.
Well, when it came out, though, it was a big deal. But I'm shocked that, with that being the one that made the top, that every film didn't have one that made the top then.
Nope.
Right.
No.
Exactly.
Especially
There's
Frozen.
no way that's any better than the others.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't know if it applies to Aladdin as much. But I wonder if part of it is that with Encanto, Disney's tapping into an audience that wouldn't necessarily have been tapped into as directly by something like Frozen.
Maybe. I mean,
What
I know
audience are you
Bruno
talking
has
about?
been.
No,
Has been
the
ubiquitous.
Latino audience.
Oh, okay.
That,
I know that.
Let It Go, Let It Go and Frozen is a, as we talked about when we talked about Frozen 2, it's a very white film.
I don't know. I think
Encanto
of-
has, I guess, some kind of might be having more crossover appeal because it's not just.
Well, okay. That's true, Patrick.
This
but
anthem, but
I don't say this to insult you because I know that you're a big Casey Kasem, Billboard top 40 kind of guy. But
I wasn't my day. Yes.
hasn't that always been pretty white? Like it was hard to be too white to get to the top of the charts.
Oh no, I'm talking about Disney songs, not the charts itself. I'm talking about Disney is tapping into
Right,
the
but
audience. In other words,
again, I
Let
hear
It,
that,
Let It
but-
Go is yeah.
Then
I
why
hear
would
that,
this one
but-
be at you said the top of for more than a week, like that
It-
hypothetically.
right.
should-
If Ice Ice Baby can, I assume probably topped out at number 1 at some point. Like you couldn't imagine a whiter song,
Yeah.
and like there it is. I don't know. That's interesting. I guess
Yeah.
I think historically, like Latino music has just been segregated out of that kind of consideration. So maybe that's the change as well.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Because-
But it might also express shifting demographics in that appealing to an all or a largely white audience, whereas once upon a time that was plenty to get to the top of the charts. Now
Yeah.
it's not.
There might be a multicultural thing. Like, it's not that I'm not hearing your argument. I'm just not fully convinced by it. I don't know. It's a puzzler. But
I wasn't so much arguing it as just throwing it out there. I have no actual proof for it. So
well, you're hanging on to it
more
pretty
of a
tightly. So
hypothesis.
like, it's a puzzler.
I've got more fun facts.
Okay.
So let's see here. I want to do that. So Miranda wrote 8 original songs for the Encanto soundtrack. As of this recording, how many of them have charted within Billboard's Hot 100?
Oh, boy. I'm going to say 3.
Okay. Rich, would you like to guess?
Is Rich gone?
I don't know. It still shows his name there, but I'm not hearing him.
Well, he's definitely on autopilot then. I'll guess for him. Rich is
I
going to
guess.
guess 2.
Okay, well, you're both wrong.
Damn it.
Because as of this week, all 8 have charted.
1, 2.
Wow. Lin-Manuel
Because
Miranda
the last
doing
one,
well.
the last one that hadn't charted is literally number 100. Lin-Manuel Miranda has literally the number 1 and the number 100 song.
Boy,
on the
that
Billboard
can't have
Hot 100.
happened very often.
I have no data on that.
Well, I wasn't expecting that you would. Can I
It
read
feels
you
like you were.
Can I read you a fair or foul from RogerEbert.com that goes along this line?
Oh no. Yeah, go ahead. I fear what
it-
this is going to be.
It's from Monica Castillo at RogerEbert.com.
Oh, okay. That's right.
Quote-
Ebert's dead, so it's not actually Ebert.
Right. Yes. Speaking of those musical sequences, I think it's time Lin-Manuel Miranda takes a break. After knocking it out of the park with In the Heights, Hamilton, and Moana, his 2021 offerings have been a little lackluster. There's a sense that these musical numbers are the reheated leftovers from other projects. They sound like his work, but they don't offer anything new or exciting to get stuck in our heads. It goes on to describe disposable pop songs that are cloyingly
Ouch.
repetitive. So there's like, the exact opposite. Like all 8 have charted, and Monica Castillo, is really quite disappointed in the threadbare songs that he's charting.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because one of the things that really surprises me is We Don't Talk About Bruno is a very weird song.
Yes.
To have be like the breakout song. Like it's not the romantic ballad that Whole New World was. Right. It's not the anthem that Let It Go. It's basically it's an exposition song. It's basically explaining why. So it's the weirdest song that you would expect to be like. I would have expected Surface Pressure. If I were to pick a song, I would expect that to be. Yeah. It's a great song. It got to number 8 on the chart, so it's not doing bad either.
It's a very Miranda-esque song. Surface Pressure is. I have another fair or foul that applies to what you're talking about. So Glenn Weldon was on NPR talking about Bruno and why it's so popular. And what he said is as follows. We don't have to overthink this. It's insanely catchy. It slaps in a way that a lot of Lin-Manuel Miranda's stuff does. It's an earworm.
I do like
pure and simple.
I do like slaps. Yeah.
You see, as soon as he says slap, like I've lost him, because now that old folks are saying it, slaps is clearly cooked.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, it's interesting because he's basically making and calling it an earworm. He's basically saying the same thing as Castillo in terms of it being catchy and whatnot.
But he then goes on.
He just doesn't seem to hold. Yeah.
Yeah. He then goes on to say, but it's also about something very real, very recognizable, because every family has that thing we all agree on not to gossip about until you get one of your aunts alone. So what's your take on the music overall? Like we've heard diametrically opposed opinions.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I thought it worked well within the movie. None of it really jumped out to me as like things that would stand so much on their own, just as songs people would want to listen to, except maybe Surface Pressure.
Yeah.
That, the film, the songs by and large seemed pretty embedded within the film. So I'm a little bit surprised that they've had the success that they've had just as songs.
Right. I agree.
I also like Lin-Manuel Miranda's music generally.
Right.
I love Hamilton. I love Tick Tick Boom. And I like the songs in Encanto. So I guess I'm part of the problem, I guess Castillo would say.
Perhaps so. So I went to see it with Hope, and because I'm so over-researched, I knew that he had written the music for this. And I gotta say, initially I was kind of underwhelmed. The music to me was a little hit or miss. So I'm kind of in between, every song on the charts and Castillo saying that like there's nothing here. But the songs that were good, Surface Pressure, We Don't Talk About Bruno, I get it. What else can I do? Like there's some good songs in here. Lin-Manuel Miranda is a terrific writer, I think. But there are moments in Surface Pressure where you feel kind of the Hamilton break in it, if that makes sense. And so, I enjoyed it, but I agree with you. I didn't see it as music that was kind of hitting a home run. He was hitting solid doubles for the most part. Yeah, there was nothing. The songs were all good, but there was nothing in it that was like, oh, that's the next Let It Go or what have you. Right. Agreed.
So I'm surprised. It's just, I'm like, wow, it seems weird. And then for it to be the We Don't Talk About Bruno song, I'm like, that's just a weird song to have be like the breakout hit.
But it so captures so much of the film, I guess.
Yeah,
it does, but that's not usually the kind. Yeah, that's not usually the kind of song. Usually it's the ballad or the anthem or something that stands out.
Well, how much of this is
like the first song, "Welcome to the Madrigals," would have been the one that would have been like the kind of big number.
Man, I thought that was a dreadful song.
Okay, so I thought it was me too that like it didn't land, like especially the first time I heard it. It just felt like muddled, like she almost like it just was so quick, and I thought I just wasn't able to keep up with it like mentally.
Oh no, it was hard. Yeah, it was one that I was like, wow, this song is explaining a lot, which is why I was glad. I was like, oh good, they're doing it a second time. I can actually catch.
Yeah, they did.
There was a lot of like that is a lot of information.
It's very much like, Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet-esque in that way, like where you do a really long opening number. Because, I mean, this movie had just so many characters packed into it that you kind of needed like a family tree.
Which you literally got, yeah.
Right, yeah, right. Like, that's kind of what, the prologue to Natasha does as well. So not original, but, I just... It's a song. It didn't really capture me. Like it took a while for the music to really kick in, I thought.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's a song that's doing a lot of more exposition work than really being a song. A standalone. Again, it's fairly. Yeah. I mean, again, that's that song even more than We Don't Talk About Bruno. Like that song is an information dump at a very fast speed.
I mean,
but if I'm on Spotify,
you should already know this.
If I'm on Spotify and I'm listening to something from Natasha, it's almost, more often than anything else, it's going to be the prologue. So like you can write that song in a way that it is more than just an information dump. But anyway, I wondered with Bruno too, how much of this is like the TikTokification of America as well, because I think in some ways like Bruno really put down roots in TikTok that allowed it to kind of like achieve the heights that it has. And I think so to me it's a really interesting kind of thing. Like I think we can think about demographics, but we might think about technology too. And the way
I think you're right about
TikTok was a springboard.
Well, just social media
Bruno.
In general, but especially that's the song that before I even watched the movie, that was the one song that I already like kind of heard before even watching it, because it was all over TikTok.
Exactly. I don't know what the answer is, but I find it really interesting.
Yeah, I mean it's a neat song. It's not
agreed.
Bruno, it's not bad, but again, especially when you realize like the charted hit, and then you see like Frozen get it. It is fascinating that that's the song that basically beat Let It Go from Frozen in a sense.
Yeah.
Well, it beat everything. It's the first Disney song to do multiple weeks at number one. So
yeah.
Even Aladdin.
Even Aladdin.
Yep.
So I have a question.
So were you?
Go ahead, Patrick.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I was just going to say, were you? Oh, go ahead.
No, you please. This is really hard at a distance. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
It this time. No, you go.
No, this is quality. This is quality podcasting. You go ahead.
I really must. I was just going to. You go ahead.
I was just going to say I found it interesting because I'm assuming you know the actor that did the voice of Mirabelle.
Yes.
Is the actor that plays Rosa on Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yes, which is, I guess, shows considerable range, not just in terms of characterization, but age as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I would, I mean, I've heard her talk in her normal voice, and her normal voice sounds much more like Mirabelle than it does Rosa.
Yeah.
But yeah, just someone, I was like, but, her playing someone so much younger. That was all. That's all. That's my thing.
She seemed to carry it. Like and
that's the thing. I knew she was involved in it, and I looked up afterwards. I was like, oh, she was Mirabelle. Like if you had asked me who she played in the film, I was like, well, I guess maybe Louisa was the character she played.
Yeah.
But then I looked, I was like, oh no, she's Mirabelle. That would not have been my guess.
Well, age-wise,
she's got an impressive range.
Yeah, you would have guessed a parent. Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's my question for you, Patrick.
Yes.
Here we have another movie, and another Disney movie about people of color, kind of grounded in a magical realism that removes them from the real world.
Yep.
You, of course, are a resident magical realism expert.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Like, is it a problem, or are we just too concerned about, like, overthinking it?
No, that's a lot of my thoughts about Encanto is, you know, on the one hand, you know, particularly the fact that it is set in Colombia, which of course is where, you know, where Gabriel Garcia Marquez, the great Latin American magical realist, is from. You know, I can see sort of why they went in the direction they did. And then, yeah, I'm of two thoughts on the magical realism in the film, because on the one hand, you can I look at the magical realism in terms of the vibrancy and the color of their hidden little valley.
Yeah.
And the way in which there's almost, you know, kind of the way in which the Colombian or if you want to say Latinx culture that it is presenting is presented with a very sort of a vibrancy that borders on magical realism, that sort of makes it stand out and have a kind of power to it.
Right.
But then there's the other side of it, which is exactly what you said, which is the way in which that they are, you know, again, as you kind of alluded to, like there's this very vague sense of violence, political violence or some kind of violence that sort of drives Alma and the rest of the inhabitants of the valley into it.
Right.
And, you know, so sort of there's this sort of vague sort of feint towards dealing with sort of that kind of violence. But ultimately what the film does is completely remove its characters from any sort of interaction with that. And as much as, you know, something like Gabriel Garcia Marquez's 100 Years in Solitude, in its sort of fictional country of Macondo, is a fictional, magically real country, it's still a country that is very much connected to, even if just allegorically, what's going on in Colombia politically at the time. Encanto is sort of divorcing itself from it, and so
would it be fair to say,
particularly near the end, where, you know, the valley splits open when the magic is broken, I was like, oh geez, they've been cut off from the world the whole time. Like, well, that's not great.
It reminds me in some ways of your critique then of In the Heights, which built this like very colorful and vibrant community, but as I recall, one of your complaints was it was a community that kind of existed in isolation.
Yeah. It does. I mean, again, it's doing a very easy kind of magical realism, a magical realism that is completely separate from the real.
Right.
Which is probably about as much as we can expect from Disney, I guess.
Well, I think that's fair too, obviously.
But yeah, I mean, again, those were sort of my immediate thoughts. On the film was and just kind of even separate from the magical realism, was just the way in which, you know, we're looking at and we're celebrating a Colombian or Latinx community that is completely isolated from, you know, the real world around it.
Right.
Again, sort of posits an idea of Latinx communities as something wholly separate, something anachronistic. I mean, it's a very sort of pre-modern existence that they have as well. That they're
Absolutely.
They're separate both in space and time, Which again is
Space
something
and
that you've
time.
seen in Latinx and depiction of Native American communities as well. That they're
Right.
always depicted as sort of anachronistically. So there are a lot of ways in which that I found what this film does in terms of representing the community that it does problematic.
Yeah. So let me make an argument to try to salvage the film in that way that I think you can use against me. But I'm curious what you think. That this is a family movie on at least two levels, right? It's made for families, but it's about families. And one of the things I really liked about this movie was the latter, that it was about families, that it's a movie that really thinks about the ways in which we rely on each other, but it's also a movie that thinks about the ways in which we miss seeing people for who they are because we think we know them so well. That all of us are flawed, struggling human beings, surrounded by flawed, struggling human beings. And is there a kind of like a universal anchor here that helps to connect this magical village back to the real world of the people watching the movie, who are watching it and seeing in a Colombian family their own family?
See, I think I could see where you're getting that from. I think I would see it a little bit differently.
I thought you would, so I'm curious.
Yeah, just in terms of, I think what the film does with that idea of family and the idea of sort of intergenerational trauma, which is sort of what the film's been seen as talking about.
Sure.
I think what it does with that and what it does with that, I think the film does very effectively. I see that as, on a thematic level, as wholly separate from what it's doing in terms of magical realism and its representation of Latinx communities the political real.
I think it can do that. I think it can do both, potentially, I guess. Or I guess I'm
that's what I'm saying.
wondering
Is that I'm
if it can do both.
Well, I think it's doing both. I think one of them it does well at, the other one it doesn't do well at.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure which one it does well at, actually.
I think what you were saying about family and intergenerational trauma, for me, the film, I think, by and large, works on that level. I didn't, in terms of, Alma not listening to Mirabelle, but also Mirabelle not listening to Alma.
Right.
And sort of the way that I thought all of that, what the film was saying about family and trauma and the way in which trauma is passed on through generations. And then what you were saying as well about kind of more generally the way in which that expectations are sort of put on other people. I thought all of that worked perfectly. I thought that all worked fine in the film. And seemed to me to be kind of the main thrust of the film. The other stuff that we've been discussing about, the political violence and how that leads to, or just the violence that leads to the creation of this community, and the way in which that this community is sort of rendered both in space and time, that I think is stuff that the film is not, even though it's using it, I don't think the film is thinking about it as much as it's thinking about the more themes that are built within the family.
Got it. Which brings me to my final fair or foul, if you don't mind me running it by you, because it just feels like it fits here.
Yeah.
This is from the New York Times. Maya Phillips. There's a robust engagement with and respect for Latino culture in all of its dimensions in this film. The Madrigal family members' skin tones range from lighter to darker, their hair textures from straight to kinky curly, and the grand poobah of the contemporary musical movie score, Lin-Manuel Miranda, provides a spellbinding soundtrack of songs combining salsa, bachata, and hip-hop, played with traditional folk instruments from Colombia.
Oh, is that the end?
That's it.
Oh,
I mean, yeah, I guess maybe.
I guess I'm
that's
curious
agreed.
if you find it to be a robust engagement. Maybe I should have emphasized the start.
Well, how did she when she says a robust engagement with what again?
Robust engagement with and respect for Latino culture in all its dimensions. That's the claim I'm interested in you reacting to.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say it's fair in the sense that it's dealing with a Latino culture and community largely isolated unto itself. And so, yeah, I mean, again, I think it's kind of the same point. I would agree with that in the sense that what the film is doing within the community it imagines is done well and is effective.
Right.
What the film does in terms to get us to or to create that community, or the way it sort of imagines that community within a larger world or fails to do so, is where it becomes problematic.
Fair enough.
And so for me, again, yeah, it's again, yeah, in terms of what it wants to do within the village, I think it's by and large effective. Though there is kind of a weird, hierarchy within the village.
For sure.
Oh, like with the family and the other villages.
Yeah, with the family kind of being and the village being very dependent on the Madrigals and everything's hunky dory until things start to go wrong, and then Alma is kind of closing the door on the community. I'm like, oh, there's kind of a weird quasi hierarchy or aristocracy kind of
yeah,
and so some class issues that maybe kind of rear their head at least for a moment, but then we get the Disney happy ending.
Yeah, we don't like to deal with class issues in this country.
Yeah. So, but yeah, and so yeah, so that's the thing. I agree that what it's doing within the community, it can be effective at, even as what it does to create that community becomes problematic.
Right. It's complicated.
And is as you said, kind of a it invokes the kind of violence that leads to the creation of this community, but not to really do or say anything about that violence or provide any kind of solution or reaction to that violence. The violence is a device.
Right.
But yeah, it is. Yeah. So that, I mean, because that was, yeah, I mean, me, I'm watching this film. I'm like, and again, maybe this is a step towards something better, in terms of,
right.
But it also does continue to perpetuate that idea too, that the uber genre of Latin American art is magical realism.
And
that sort of, that's what Latin American or Latinx art is, and so it unfortunately kind of there's ways in which that it probably perpetuates that as well.
Yeah, and to spin it in a different direction that you didn't intend, but I think, is worth at least mentioning, that, American filmmakers continue to kind of imagine that violence creates magic. Which, is just, I think, problematic in kind of the telling ourselves the fairy tales we want to believe about who we are and our history.
Yeah, well, and that's another way to kind of look at it is in terms of the setup of the film, it at least gestures towards a grounding in some kind of real world violence, but then we very quickly shift into the fairy tale realm.
Right. Because of course in America,
and that's where we are.
That violence always
that's where
creates,
we are for the bulk of the film.
Yeah, beauty and magic, right?
Yeah. Well, and also the idea, and sort of a corollary to what you said, the idea of magic or fairy tale being the quote-unquote solution to violence is a fairly politically vacant answer.
I would drop Yeah, but I would drop the fairly, right? It's politically vacant. Like fairy tales don't actually address the sins of violence in our past.
Yeah. So.
But if you're going to have 8 songs chart, right? You can't very well.
Yeah.
Focused on the
should
violence.
Should we say some good things about
end.
the film? I feel like we've been kind of hard on the film.
Sure. What do you have good to say? I mean, we're at an hour, just so you know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
let's keep talking anyway.
Yeah, we can keep going. I did like I will say we mentioned sort of. I did like that. Apparently, the vast majority of actors in the film, this is their first U.S. exposure.
That's pretty cool.
They used a lot of, besides Beatrice that plays Mirabelle, John Leguizamo that plays Bruno. By and large, the actors portraying the other main characters are not well known in the States or known at all. So
right.
it was nice to see that they used some new voices, brought some new people and got them some wider attention. So I liked that.
Absolutely. That is to be admired and praised.
I liked the focus on a largely predominantly female and matriarchal family. The way in which that the female characters in particular largely eschewed kind of the typical Disney princess prototype.
Yeah,
and
Disney
in fact, part of
works pretty hard at that nowadays.
Part of Isabella's storyline is sort of rejecting that. So I thought those were some good things the film did.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, the way in which the family treats Bruno is probably somewhat problematic, like within that context. But yeah, I agree. I thought Isabella was great in that way, that she was like you were supposed to see her as the princess from the beginning, and like that's the lesson, right?
Yeah. Well, then the other thing about the other thing about Bruno that doesn't really, and this is probably the one plot hole that's in the film.
Oh, Bruno, yeah.
Is, Bruno is supposed to have been hiding, behind the walls. Nobody knows that he's there.
Right.
But if Dolores hears everything, and if she's been hearing the rat soap opera the whole time, then she's heard Bruno and knows Bruno is back there and just never told anyone.
Well, but also, like, the whole thing was that one day Bruno disappeared. But they know they live in a location surrounded by mountains, so he can't actually go anywhere.
Yeah.
So, like, if he actually disappeared, like, it seems like the family's like, oh, he disappeared one day, and we just didn't really look for him.
Well, but that's the thing, right? The family.
That's one of the ways why the family's treatment of Bruno is pretty awful.
Yeah. The family doesn't want to look for Bruno, right? Like, Bruno is supposed to leave because Bruno is, this guy who brings doom and destruction. And so, in a way, maybe, she would hear him and just never talk about it or ignore that. Yeah. Maybe when, he leaves, but like Rich says, there's nowhere to go. Like, the point isn't, like, they're not really concerned about it. They seem to have just gone on with their lives. They're just as happy.
How the family treats Bruno, for the ending to be that, like, oh, he's like saying, like, oh, I just meant you should get an umbrella or whatever. It's going to rain. Like, that's it. That's just a misunderstanding. Just a minor, multi-year misunderstanding in which, you never
led this guy to, like,
brother, son.
Live
with rats and whatever.
Live with rats in the wall of a house. Yeah,
Well, it's also problematic in that what redeems Bruno is the fact that even though he's behind the wall, he's still wanted to be a part of the family. Which is almost like Bruno has something to prove.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the overproving thing for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That he's having to prove more, and he's basically exiled because the family doesn't appreciate him being around, but he's the one that seems to have to demonstrate, his dedication to the family because supposedly he's the problem.
As if the problem is him.
He's not the problem. Yeah, because he's not the problem. And even you said, he brings doom. He doesn't bring doom. The doom is coming. He's just seeing it.
Right. Yeah. No, but the family sees him as the person who brings doom. Yeah, it's really completely unfair. But luckily, Bruno is a very forgiving and easygoing fella.
Or he realizes that he has nowhere else to go, and he might as well come back. Like, I can't actually go anywhere else. The wall, the mountains are still there.
He seems pretty happy with the rats, though. You know, like I guess he could.
See, this is why I do want Encanto 2, but I want it to be like Encanto 2 coming to America, or like them having to go out into the real world.
Which I'm sure because they don't have any magic,
Disney,
I think, at this point, right?
I'm sure Disney will do really well with that.
I'm sure that's what Disney is planning too. Like, but that's really what they would like to do.
Yeah.
What if we drop these people just in South Central? It'll be great.
Yeah. It'll be like Star Trek IV: Voyage Home when they travel back to the 80s.
I don't think I've actually seen that one. So.
Really?
Oh, I gave up on Star Trek a long time ago.
It's the one with the whales.
Yeah.
I don't remember people saying good things about that one.
Oh, no, that is next to Wrath of Khan, that is the one that everyone says is the best Star Trek film of the original.
Yeah. Really? Interesting. Well,
I never understood it because it is the stupidest film. But
I think it's just the idea of Spock and everyone, being in, where are they, San Francisco?
Yeah, I think they're in San Francisco in like the 80s.
The novelty of that, of the Star Trek, crew being in San Francisco.
Yeah, the Trekkies really love the big, outrageously allegorical lessons that I guess whales might teach us, right? So, there is kind of a tension there, maybe. So,
yeah.
Oh, are there any theories on why Mirabelle doesn't have a gift, or never gets a gift or a door? Or like any idea?
I'm sure there are. I didn't actually look.
Oh, but I meant, did you have any? Because the film never gives me. I don't see any point in the film. It says.
See, I thought that, and I'm probably reading too much into it. Like, her gift is, like, the humanity to bring people back together. Like, that's literally her gift to the family.
It's weird
but
because she actually does
stretch.
at one point see the house cracking ahead of when the house actually cracks.
I thought what the movie was going to do at that point was show that, she has the same ability as Bruno, and
that's kind of what I'm thinking, is that she's got the same ability. Because that's the one thing we see her doing. In that when they're I think it's when they're at the dinner and she sees everything cracking and falling apart, but that's not what's actually happening. She's having a vision very similar to the kind Bruno has. But that's about as close as we get to.
You two are probably right, but I really prefer my reading of it.
Oh, I don't. Yeah,
I don't. Like, her
I actually think, Alan. I think Alan,
human.
your reading is. Yeah, I think your reading is actually closer to what the creators intended.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know.
The film. Yeah. I'm more annoyed that the film itself never says that's because it seems like because even if that's the case, then why didn't she get the power to be empath or something, feel people's emotions or something, you could definitely imagine what the kid who gets talks to animals or whatever, give her just some random power.
So you wanted laser beams to shoot out of her eyes at some point then.
Well, but it seems weird that there was again, it shows the door being there, she touching the handle and it disappearing, which very much looks like the house is just rejecting it, like a note that says, you don't need a power or something. Would have might been better than just outright rejection from the house.
Well, I don't know if the end of the film when she puts the new doorknob on the house, which I think the new doorknob has an M on it.
It does.
So does that mean the whole house is her door? And that now she's getting her gift.
Or is she
whatever it is.
Replacing Abuela? She's the new in charge of the family now, which
I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, there's weird things with Bruno where this is gonna be a forgiveness thing where Bruno has to come back and forgive, but nobody ever does anything for Bruno to forgive them. Thankfully, like you said, he is very forgiving.
Bruno is very much the middle child, and so I identified with Bruno.
Oh no! Here we
middle child,
and here we go. No. Oh, you know what? If you think about Bruno as the middle child in the rat soap opera, that's kind of like taking your stuffed animals and setting them up on stairs and pretending like you're watching a movie.
Possible. Except I did that with my sisters. It's more like locking myself away in my house and playing with my Legos.
Or like a tower.
You just have a really big wall to live in now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Leia is the equivalent of the rats, I guess.
Or wasn't there like that
Oh,
plastic?
Leia would appreciate that.
Wasn't there that like plastic pen that they used to put you in when you were a kid?
You mean my
With a
playpen?
straight,
Yeah,
with a straight
when I was a
jacket
kid.
and everything.
Just my playpen.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, my parents used to put me in my playpen because I would just entertain myself, and they would go deal with my sisters.
Yeah. So like, and that's kind of like Bruno in a way, maybe.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like I said, I'm very much like Bruno,
Yeah.
unappreciated.
Well, I don't think that's true.
Living in the walls.
The plight of the middle child.
Wear a helmet,
Everyone's expectations being imposed on me unfairly. Yeah, no, it's
Oh, let me play the world's tiniest violin.
we don't
man, I haven't
talk
heard that one
about
at all.
Patrick. Ick.
Oh, except that's all that we do. Literally, after we finish 5 minutes on your childhood, it's like nobody talks about me.
Yeah. Oh,
Just-
gee, I got a whole 5 minutes. I guess I'll just have to, enjoy
enough.
that little sliver of time I was given.
And well, what about the time you wrote the introduction to the play?
Yeah. Nobody even asked for that.
That's right, and
But
you
that
got a
wasn't
lot
about
of.
me.
You got it was
wasn't
all
about
about
me.
you. Oh, it was 100%
all
about
is
you.
about
That was
Oh
not,
my
no, It
God!
was not. No, you're totally wrong.
If there was ever a biography written of you, that would be chapter 1.